Conventional wisdom might assume that ice cream sales only spike when it's warm out, but that is not the case. Turns out that cold weather can also have people craving sweet scoops as a comfort food. This is an example of the kind of insights the weather company is providing to ad clients to help them better target marketing amid changing weather patterns. And that's a skill that has become vital as climate change disrupts traditional seasonal forecasts. Hello, this is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. And on this edition of the Marketer's Brief podcast, we talk to weather company CMO Randi Stipes. She'll describe how the company is leaning into AI to not just help clients target ads, but to dissect weather patterns to help with longer-term marketing planning. The company, which controls weather.com and the Weather Channel app, is about to be under new ownership with private equity firm Francisco Partners taking over from IBM. Stipes will discuss what the ownership change means, and she also foreshadows some new functionality coming to the Weather Channel app. And now, my conversation with Randi. Hi, Randi. Welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Thanks, EJ. Happy to be here.
So before we really dig in, I want to set the stage by having you describe what the weather company entails. Of course, people are familiar with the TV network,
Sure.
But you guys are not part of that. You operate all the digital channels, right?
That's correct. Common question. And so the weather company has a huge consumer presence. We are the parent company for the Weather Channel. That is our flagship consumer brand. Hopefully you have the Weather Channel app on your phone, weather.com. We also have two other consumer brands, Weather Underground and Storm Radar. But there's an enterprise aspect to our business as well, where we are using weather data and weather intelligence to help businesses make smarter decisions.
And I want to dig into that in a little bit, and particularly when it comes to working with advertisers, because I know there's a lot to discuss there. But before we do that, you guys are undergoing some changes when it comes to ownership. I wanted to touch on briefly. I think it was announced last year, IBM had owned you for several years, and they recently announced they're selling to a private equity firm called Francisco Partners that I believe that deal will be closing in a matter of days. I'm curious, how is this ownership change going to affect what you do? IBM, of course, for years has been associated with Watson and all those technology tools that I think you guys have benefited from. Will that continue?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'll start by saying the future is bright. The weather company has been part of IBM for nearly the last 8 years, and we've benefited tremendously during our time with IBM. We've benefited from IBM's leadership in AI, in cloud computing, certainly privacy, and overall, we've always shared the philosophy to first and foremost use technology for good. And so our plans are to take the best of what we've learned in our time at IBM. We're having a conscious uncoupling, I like to say. And now we're really focused on accelerating our efforts. How do we provide even greater innovation to the millions of people and businesses who rely on us every day? I like to say, we're ready to be unleashed, and we are very optimistic about our future with Francisco Partners. They're a tech-focused private equity firm, and we feel like we found a really great home.
So let's talk a little bit about your role in the marketing world. You guys have long offered products that I think can help brands deliver advertising based on local weather conditions. Can you bring us up to speed on how those offerings have evolved? What are some of the things that you're getting the most demand for these days?
Yeah. So first of all, we can't really talk about the evolution of our solutions without talking about the evolution of weather. It starts there. That's the foundation of everything we do. And climate change is indeed a reality. That's not a political statement, but rather a scientific fact. Mother Nature is retaliating. I was born and raised in Southern California. And last year, Southern California faced its first tropical storm in 80 years. Compare that to the fact that New York, on the other hand, went without an inch of snow for more than 600 days. And so all of these seasonal norms are going out the window. Weather's becoming more volatile. It's also therefore becoming more impactful. And so what we are doing really across the business, but specifically talking about advertising, is that we're evolving our technology and we're evolving our solutions to go beyond the forecast. How do we go beyond the data? Because let's face it, there's weather data that people can get, that brands can get from a lot of places. We're certainly the most accurate, but we want to acknowledge that weather data is largely available. And we're going beyond the forecast to help brands really understand and be able to extract the insights. What are the insights that we can glean from our 40 years in this business, our insights about consumer behavior, and how can we arm brands with those insights so that they can make better decisions?
Can you give a real life example of how you're doing that with a client right now?
I'm happy to. So one of the things that we just previewed at CES is something called the Weather Engine. And the Weather Engine is a platform. It is a platform that our customers can log into and have real-time access to weather intelligence and insights that we're making available really through the application of large-scale data analytics, machine learning, AI, and using that to produce actionable insights, not only for marketers, but for the entire organization. So certainly that can inform smarter and more effective marketing decisions, better targeting, but how does the entire organization benefit from that, from inventory management to pricing optimization, supply chain? And so that is a real live functioning product that we are in the process of testing now with a variety of customers.
So what kind of data does that give them in particular, like beyond just like a long-term weather forecast? What are you offering that they can't get elsewhere?
So what it does is kind of going back to the notion of going beyond a forecast and actually extracting the insights. Let me give you a few examples that are really germane to, well, we'll stick with the marketing world right now. So what we can do is we can, one, just start with pure weather data, or we can work with brands and correlate their sales data information to help understand the conditions that might influence product. I'll give you two examples. There's some things that are intuitive. We're not talking about it's raining and so go buy rain boots, but we're talking about things that are more nuanced. Take ice cream, for example. What's the weather parameter or the condition that you think would impact ice cream sales?
Warm weather, of course, right?
Okay, right. You would think. Fair guess, and that's absolutely true. Temperature has the highest impact as expected, but it's not necessarily in the way that you might think. So if we take the Ohio Valley, for example, we found that there was up to a 30% sales increase when the temperature dropped below 57. And again, not very intuitive, but when you really think about it, that's because when the temperatures drop and people start going indoors, there's this cocooning behavior. People want comfort food. It could be ice cream. It could be chili. I'll give you one more example of something that the engine could provide. We know weather's relative. I mentioned I'm from Southern California. If it drops below 70 degrees, I consider it chilly. You mentioned that you're from Chicago. That's probably a heat wave to you, right? But when we're working with a client and looking at the impacts of what this means for hair care products. So heat and humidity in general have a high impact on hair care products. But what we saw is that is more so the case in the Northeast than the Southeast. And that's because, and I can attest to this, having lived in Atlanta for 20 years, that when the humidity reaches a certain level and it's just at an all-time high, people don't bother with styling their hair. I go straight for a ponytail. And those types of insights not only give, again, the marketer the information to help them understand when might be the more effective time to advertise. But it can help a retailer in this case better understand when to stock relevant products, for example. And so the engine, just to kind of bring it home, the engine provides the intelligence. That's the first part. But the second part of it is that it also makes it actionable. There's an API that then is available and can be scaled and integrated across the business's operations.
So beyond that more strategic planning that you're moving into, you also are helping with daily executions, right? And you're dynamically helping to create ads, video in some cases, that will change based on the current conditions, right? That's something you've been doing for a while. Is that still important? Is that still in demand? And how is that changing?
Yeah, it's absolutely in demand. I would say that's foundational. It starts there, and that's something that we've long been doing, and we will continue to do that. And being able, again, they're connected. You first have to have the insights to be able to then go ahead and provide the relevant creative. But that remains a key part of our portfolio and something that clients have for a long time been leveraging, not only on our properties. I think the big thing that's changed, DJ, is that we started doing this within our owned and operated properties within that contextual environment of the Weather Channel app and weather.com. But how are we providing that same type of intelligence that allows a brand to execute anywhere across the advertising ecosystem?
And I think you guys have had some fun with weather too. I wanted to ask you about the ELF campaign. I think it was a while back, but I think it got a lot of attention because you partnered with Meghan Trainor, if I remember correctly, right? Can you talk about that campaign?
Yes. Listen, that was such a fun partnership. Such a big fan of the innovation that ELF is doing. ELF enlisted Meghan Trainor to help really evangelize their whole Glow campaign and Glow products, and recognizing that they wanted to go ahead and align with weather. They looked to us as a trusted brand. We also, we're very careful and very thoughtful around who we align with to leverage our brand. But we partnered with them so that Meghan Trainor could almost create a look live weather forecast, a Glowcast, if you will, to promote their new product line through that lens. It was a lot of fun, socially driven campaign that had strong results for ELF.
And that creative was changed based on whatever conditions the local where the ads were shown, right?
Correct. Yes. Dynamic so that it was relevant to people wherever they were seeing the creative.
I think it promoted the Halo Glow liquid filter makeup for those interested in that. Let's talk a little more about AI. I know IBM, has been involved, and when it comes to one-to-one marketing, right? That's where we're seeing a lot of AI, whether it's some sort of chatbot execution. Are you guys playing in that space as well, or how is AI changing sort of what you do?
Yeah, let me talk about it. I'll talk about it in kind of two respects. Maybe first, how it's changing what we do in meteorology, and then as well as how it's changing what we're doing in marketing. And listen, like AI for many might be the new kid on the block, but we have long been using AI in our forecasting. Very quickly, I'll touch on this, that using AI, we pull from over 100 different weather models to arrive at the best possible forecast for any given situation. But modeling and AI, as fantastic as they are, they can't do that work alone. So what happens is we combine that with the expertise of over 100 meteorologists that we're fortunate to have on our team. And it's really a partnership between the technology and humans to yield the best outcomes. And that might sound like an obvious pairing, but in comparison, there are weather providers who rely solely on AI, and they really just pass through weather data from government sources or don't apply meteorologists at all. And that really results in forecasts that lack context, that lack that quality control. And so I mentioned that example first because we have cut our teeth for decades on AI. It's been really part of our culture. And now on the marketing front, I think we're just getting started. We've been using AI on a few levels to help us better predict audiences. not only doing that, helping do that for brands who come to us, but I'm also a buyer. I'm a buyer and a seller. So as I'm looking at ways to drive audience to our channels, how are we using AI to help better identify our audiences? We've used it for dynamic creative optimization. And I think the greatest curiosity and the greatest optimism is how can we use AI to create more personal experiences? My creative director I have to credit him. He has a really great line, but there's a lot of truth to it. And that he likes to say, AI isn't an easy bake oven. And so I think there's a lot of truth to that because we have to continue to experiment and use AI. We're committed to that, and not to replace humans though, but to hopefully inspire us and help us augment our intelligence.
Last question before we run out of time. Given that I assume you have a nice little infusion of private equity money coming your way, I would assume your new investor would like to invest in new things and try some new things. I'm wondering, your front door is the app. That's how most people probably encounter you. I use it all the time. Are you guys planning to upgrade the app in any way, make some changes, or are you investing in it? And what could we look forward to possibly in the next few months?
Yeah, perfectly timed question. So we are innovating in the app. In fact, the Weather Channel app, there's a new and improved version that we are slowly releasing in market. And likely when this becomes available, listeners will be able to go ahead and download that and start to really take advantage of the benefits. And the intention and what we're really focused on is, just like I talked about for enterprises, for consumers, how are we going beyond the forecast and connecting the dots for how weather impacts people's lives, particularly when we look at people's health and their well-being. 60%, over 60%, I want to say it was like 67% of the people who use our properties reported that their physical health is impacted by weather. 70% say that they visit weather.com every week to manage their symptoms. And so the new version of the app is really focused on how we can bring things like skin health and breathing and allergies, greater information about cold and flu to the forefront, to give people a better understanding of, one, how weather impacts their health, and then give them the tools to mitigate their symptoms. And a little preview, that's in the app, but then also we're not stopping there. How does the weather impact things like headaches, hydration, and heat illness, your pet's health? And so it's translating the weather and hopefully removing some of the cognitive load that we as consumers have to connect the dots. We're trying to make that more seamless for people and in a more beautiful design as well.
And will you have a nice marketing campaign to get the word out about this?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't.
When should we look for this?
So the new version of the Weather Channel app it's available. Again, we're slowly releasing it to people who have opted in to have the app automatically update, or you can go to first we're starting with iOS. Don't hate us, Android users, where it's coming for you too. You can go to the store and get the new version. And we do this slowly, we do this thoughtfully, because we're moving people's cheese. Any change is given there's millions of people who are using the app on a monthly basis, any change is a big change. So we want to make sure that we're really listening and thoughtfully responding to the user feedback. And we'll continue to evolve.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there today. Thank you again, Randi Stipes, CMO of the Weather Company. This is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. I want to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and invite you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite channel. We'll catch you next time.